humans with inside the location, but he stays unaware that those humans are reporting the whole thing returned to Major. In the meantime, Kamal visits Timur, a famous mobster who's additionally a faithful. Their dating is strained, however Kamal informs him that the protector has again and is trying to find his dagger. Timur, amazed, remembers that Murad's son Levent had died. Kamal corrects him, revealing that Murad's more youthful son Hakan is alive and turned into raised in an orphanage. Now he's the new protector. Timur insists that they have to comply with protocol and tell the grasp and different loyals. However, Kamal argues that Hakan isn't always equipped for this duty. Ultimately, Timur stalks the place of the dagger at the different hand. Amir sneaks into Mazar's residence trying to find proof, but earlier than he can get away, Mazar ambushes him from in the back of and kills him immediately. Hakan returns to the drugstore and apologizes to Kamal, but he speedily provides that he is the only who have to be apologizing due to the fact that he has overlooked what sincerely topics. He assures them that he isn't always like his father. He'll maintain his project, however will now no longer surrender on his goals. Both Kamal and Zeynep agree with him. Hakan then brings up the dagger, announcing they want to discover it as quickly as viable. However, Kamal surprises him by revealing that the dagger has already been located. He explains that when his father's loss of life, the dependable ones concealed it in a museum. Despite the fact that a person discovers its place, retrieving it's far almost not possible because of the museum's strict protection. Tomorrow, Hakan and Zeynep visit the museum, pretending to take pics of every different at the same time as secretly looking at the safety cameras, pictures, angles, and the dagger's genuine place. As soon as returned at the drugstore, they share their findings, explaining that the dagger is saved in exceptionally steady location, continuously guarded. Hakan then indicates a plan. He'll sabotage the museum's energy sooner or later, and tomorrow he'll input disguised as an electrician, thieve the dagger and get away with inside the vehicle wherein Kamal might be ready. Zay reveals the plan too cinematic and risky, insisting they want greater studies. However, Kamal, desiring a short answer, consents to go along with Howan's concept. Zay then questions how Howan plans to get away if he does manipulate to get the dagger, as he begins evolved considering it. Kamal remembers that a person may assist them. He mentions that Timur informed him approximately son, a faithful one that is aware of each inch of the museum. Hakan and Zeynep visit Meetsun, however as quickly as she sees them she panics and runs away. They manipulate to capture her, and whilst Hakan indicates his protector tattoo she is inspired, she explains that she mistook them for a person else as she has borrowed cash from numerous humans. They take her to the drugstore, provide her meals, and ask for her assist. Seilon exhibits that her father changed into a museum protection shield and changed into the only who positioned the dagger there. Whilst Kamal asks approximately her father, she unluckily tells them he's not alive, whilst Hakan tells her they want assist to break out from the museum. After stealing the dagger, Talon takes to the air her bracelet and palms it to him, pronouncing her father usually informed it might assist a person. At some point, Hakan opens a hidden compartment with inside the bracelet and unearths a passcode, one which unlocks the door main to the museum's rooftop. Overdue at nighttime, Hakan and Zay quietly input the museum from the rooftop, moving cautiously. They motive a quick circuit, reducing off the energy. Tomorrow, Hakan, disguised as an electrician, enters the museum at the same time as solving the electric problem. He discreetly knocks out the guards out of doors. Kamal video display units the protection cameras and disables the alarms from a van. In the meantime, Zeynep and Son create a distraction with inside the museum. Zeynep accuses Son of stealing her Telcel smartphone, and Son dramatically runs away, inflicting a commotion. A few of the body of workers with inside the chaos. Hakan manages to thieve the dagger, however simply as he secures it. Kamal notices through the cameras that one in all the knocked out officials is waking up and heading out of doors, performing fast. Kamal grabs his gun, storms into the museum and fires a shot into the air, pretending to be a determined guy bored to death with corruption. He shouts that he's going to end his existence. His outburst shifts everyone's interest, permitting Hakan to break out through the rooftop. Out of doors, Zeynep and Son are already with inside the van, ready. As quickly as Hakan jumps in, Zeynep, searching annoying, says she noticed Kamal getting into the museum. She fears something went incorrect and insists they look ahead to him. However, Hakan, aware about the restrained time, argues they ought to depart and could parent out a manner to lose Kamal later. Earlier than they could determine, police sirens blare with inside the distance. Without a different alternative, they pace away, leaving Kamal in the back of Hakan and Zeynep conceal in These's basement. As the Police raid the region. Happily, the officials do not discover the hidden segment and they continue to be secure. Tomorrow, Hakan and Zaeb wait out of doors the police station searching for out approximately Kamal seen a massive wide variety of officials. Zainab warns Hakan now no longer to move internal and endanger his existence. In the meantime, Mazhar indicates Fazil photos of Zainab and Hakan standing out of doors the drugstore, suggesting they have been concerned with inside the theft, but Fazil brushes it off, pronouncing his activity is simplest to deal with protection, not anything else. Irritated, Mazhar remains quiet with inside the police station. An officer recognizes Salon and techniques her to keep away from suspicion. She fast pretends she got here to go to a person. Whilst she spots Kamal, she unexpectedly accuses him of theft, inflicting a scene earlier, then dashing to hug him. In that second, Kamal whispers something in her ear. Out of doors, Sun informs Hakan and Zainab approximately Kamal's message that Hakan should live far from all of this. His safety is their precedence. However, Hawan refuses to just accept it. Decided, he insists on rescuing Kamal at any fee. Later, Zaeb meets Tamer, believing he would possibly have connections with inside the police station. She explains the complete scenario, hoping for his assist. Tamer concurs on one situation: he desires to meet the protector without a different desires. Zaeb accepts. Day after today, as Faisal and Dila talk something with inside the workplace, Yasin unexpectedly enters disguised as an workplace boy. Without caution, he assaults Faisal, pointing a gun at him and annoying. He confesses his crimes from a distance. Hakan witnesses the scene and right now intervenes, saving Faisal. Yasin's rage stems from his ruined lifestyles. Due to Faisal, nobody is inclined to provide him a task. Determined and helpless, he resorted to this act. However, with Hakan's interference, he receives stuck and the police take him away. Later, Zaeb heads to the police station with Timur. Earlier than coming into, Timur asks her to attend out of doors. After some time, he comes out together with Kamal, making Zaeb extraordinarily happy. Collectively, they go back to the basement, wherein Kamal reunites with Zainab and Hakan. Seeing them secure, he's overwhelmed with comfort. Timur subsequently meets the protector, an individual. After the assembly, Kamal tells Timur it is time for him to depart. As Timur stands at Thazi's front, Kamal warns him that if Hakan ever unearths out that his siblings died due to Timur's negligence, it will likely be disastrous. Timur, visibly angered, snaps that he failed to kill them. In frustration, he provides that their grasp is aware of not anything approximately this, and if he ever unearths out, Kamal may be discarded. Just like Daria, Kamal, understanding he has no different desire, presses similarly to extra length, admitting he has many unanswered questions and that the solutions lie with Daria. Kamal factors out that she turned into forged out years in the past and has no touch with them anymore. Tamer then palms him Daria's touch info earlier than strolling away. In the meantime, Faisal furiously lashes out at Mazhar for his protection failure, reminding him that it turned into his duty. However, rather than focusing on that, Mazhar turned into obsessively chasing Hakan. This error fees him his task as Faisal fires him immediately. Enraged, Mazhar retaliates, claiming he has committed his complete lifestyles to Faisal, best to be discarded like this. Faisal stays silent, displaying no regret. On the identical time, Hakan visits Sila to reconcile. However, she continues to be livid. Feeling not noted, she slams the door in his face. Undeterred, he remains out of doors waiting. But earlier than he realizes it, Mazhar sneaks up from at the back of and knocks him subconscious. Hawan wakes up tied to a chair in Mazhar's workplace. A brutal combat erupts among the two. Mazhar, packed with anger, blames Hawan for ruining his skirting with Faisal ever because he joined obligation. His frustration reaches a breaking factor and he publicizes his cause to kill Hakan. Unfazed, Hakan coldly responds that he too has been awaiting the instant to take Mazhar down. The anxiety explodes right into a fierce struggle, each alternate effective blows. However, with inside the warfare, Hakan performing in self-defense kills Mazhar. At that very second, Dila steps outdoor for a few paintings and witnesses the stunning scene. Hakan status over Mazhar's useless frame surprise floods her face as she struggles to method what simply passed off. Meanwhile, Hakan, nonetheless catching his breath, desperately tells her now no longer to misconceive. He insists it change into self-protection. However, Ila beaten remains frozen in disbelief. Police arrive and arrest Hawan. He maintains, looking to give an explanation for to Ila that he acted in self-protection. However, no person believes him. There aren't any wounds on his frame as he changes into carrying the talismanic blouse at the same time as Mazhar lay useless close by. Outdoor, Faisal stands anxiously, not able to step into the crime scene. His endurance wears skinny as he waits for any information. Some moments later Ela ultimately emerges, her face light and packed with misery. She appears at him, suffering to discover the proper phrases earlier than revealing that Hakan changed into the only who killed Major. She speedy provides that it changed into an act of self-protection. However, whilst she says it, confusion lingers in her voice. There aren't in it any seen wounds on Hakan, not anything to give an explanation for how he's held captive, leaving her deeply unsettled. The load of the state of affairs crashes down on her and he or she unearths herself, not able to keep back her feelings anymore, tears properly up in her eyes, and he or she breaks down. Absolutely beaten, seeing her in a sort of inclined nation, Fazl does not hesitate. He steps ahead, wrapping his fingers round her, maintaining her near as she cries, imparting anything consolation he can in that second. Because the police escort Hakan away, his thoughts races with the whole thing that simply passed off. As he turns lower back for a very last look, his eyes land on something uncommon. Ela's bracelet. A faint glow radiates from it the instant Fazl's hand touches her. His gaze sharpens, confusion flickering throughout his face. However, then all of it clicks. The reality he hadn't taken into consideration earlier than now becomes glaringly clean. Fazl isn't always simply any everyday guy, he's the closing immortal. The conclusion sends a jolt via him. However, earlier than he can react, the officials push him ahead, forcing him to appearance away. Later Ela calls Zainab and tells her that Hakan is in problem and that he has been arrested for Mazar's homicide. Zainab is taken aback in the beginning, then rushes to her father. If Mazar changed into killed without a dagger manner, he wasn't the closing immortal. Frustration builds that whoever the idea change into immortal wasn't the actual one. That means the authentic enemy continues to be available loose, and that they do not even have the stone to song him. At that second Kamal speaks up. There's most effective one manner to discover the immortal. He have to damage his loyalty oath and meet a person he's forbidden from seeing. In the meantime, Faisal stands earlier than Mazar's dead body child, making sure his loyalty. A flashback suggests Mazar grieving over their loss, with Faisal pretending to console him. However, in fact, he changed into the only who took the whole lot from him. On the opposite aspect, Kamal tells Zainab approximately Darya her job changed into to acquire records, approximately the immortal. However, as she persevered her research, she began out admiring them and ultimately sided with them. While she changed into reassigned, she refused to obey and changed into expelled. Nobody changed into allowed to touch her. After that, Zayn realizes that Darya have to have persevered her studies through the years and can understand who the remaining immortal is. Kamal consents and comes to a decision to fulfill her. In the meantime, Faisal visits Ela at her workplace and tells her he goes to get Hakan launched. He asks if she desires to come alongside, however she refuses. He then questions whether or not she doubts Hakan's innocence. She admits she is uncertain if he's telling the reality due to the fact there aren't any wounds on his body. Faisal insists she is questioning the incorrect manner. Then he soon later well known shows the reality that he's an immortal and has lived for lots of years. Ela laughs, questioning he's joking. However, as Fel keeps her enjoyment will become uneasy. Unexpectedly he believed Mazar changed into the remaining immortal, however he changed into incorrect. He additionally well known shows that the protector took his spouse Ru'aya from him. Then he makes a proposal that he can heal Ela's mom, who's gravely sick. Later Fazl arrives on the police station and secures Hakan's launch. However, as quickly as they're on my own in a secluded valley, Hakan assaults. They combat fiercely. However, Hakan is unhurt because of his talismanic blouse. Faisal but stays calm. He pulls out his Telcel smartphone and performs a video of Ela, caution Hakan that if he does something reckless she can be able to die. Left without a preference, Hakan is pressured to obey. Fazl orders him to deliver him the dagger. Kamal is going to fulfill Darya on my own, refusing to permit Zan include him. He tells her to wait out of doors, however she ignores his commands and secretly follows, but each gets stuck. Darya confronts Kamal, pronouncing that simply as he were given her expelled she might not spare him now. Earlier than taking any motion, she well known shows a critical mystery that does not understand who the remaining immortal is. However, she does understand that they want the protector's blood to restore the others. With that, she and her allies lock Kamal and Zainab interior a room and launch toxic fuel. All entrapped interior, Kamal speaking to him as though he had been nevertheless alive. He well known shows the darkish reality that he become the only who killed Mazar's spouse and Fast notices the airflow machine. Without hesitation he lifts Zeynep and pushes her through it, teaching her to cross out of doors and open the door. He additionally says his final phrases that he's pleased with her and glad with how she fulfilled her obligations. However, Zeynep in surprise does not completely recognize what is taking place. She crawls through the airflow, rushes to the door and unlocks it, best to locate Kamal. Useless, beaten with grief and guilt, she breaks down, not able to forestall crying. Nevertheless, in tears she reaches the drugstore in which Hakan is ready. She tells Hakan the whole lot that they went to discover approximately the final immortal. However, as an alternative, discovers his actual assignment to restore the others the usage of the Protector's blood. Hakan then tells Zabe that Fazl is the final immortal and now he has Layla in his hold close. He plans to take the dagger and change it for Layla's lifestyle. Zabe warns him in opposition to it, insisting that it is a lure. However, Hakan refuses to pay attention. He broadcasts that because the Protector he may not allow harmless lifestyles be misplaced due to the fact he has already misplaced an excessive amount of. Zeynep reminds him of these who've already died looking to keep the Protector. However, he stays corporation grieving for Kamal. He is taking a second out of doors for sparkling air. Zaynep follows, best to understand too overdue due to the fact Hakan has locked her within inside the basement and brought the dagger earlier than leaving. He tells her he may not lose all of us, else he will give up Faisal and avenge every person regardless of Zeynep's determined pleas. Hakan walks away, decided to complete what has started. Hakan arrives at Phil's workplace in which Sheila is already tied to a chair. Without hesitation he tells Phil that his give up is close to. However, Phil, still retaining a gun to Ila, stays calm. Hakan confronts him, pronouncing he now is aware of his real plan to deliver his spouse Ru'ai lower back to lifestyles. He loves her deeply and is inclined to visit any lengths for her, for that he needs Hakan's blood. Hakan refuses. However, earlier than he can react, Phil pulls the cause, taking pictures Ila with inside the belly. Shocked, Hakan freezes, his thoughts racing as Ila's lifestyles hangs with inside the stability. Hakan, absolutely beaten, ultimately offers in the usage of the dagger. He extracts his blood and fingers it over to Faisal, even getting rid of his talismanic blouse as quickly because the deal is finished. Phil's guys input the room and Faisal leaves. Hakan, recognizing an possibility, grabs a gun from certainly considered one among the guards and hastily gets rid of all of them. Without losing time he lifts Ila and rushes her to the basement, putting her in an automobile and dashing in the direction of the drugstore. While he arrives, the area is empty. Ila, vulnerable and slightly retaining on well-known shows something surprising, that Fistel had presented her a deal if she trapped Hakan and surpassed him over. Phil could use his blood to convey her mom returned to existence. Due to the fact immortals can revive the lifeless with their blood, it turned into a tempting offer. However, she refused due to the fact her love for Hakan turned into actual. With the one's very last phrases she takes her final breath. Hoan, devastated, breaks down, vowing to convey her return the use of Fistel's blood. Decided, he calls Zay, informing her that Faisal has escaped once more. Zabe scolds him for being reckless and tells him that even as monitoring Faisal she noticed him input a residence. Hakan leaves the vicinity right away. However, she hesitates, fearing he's going to act unexpectedly and ruin the whole thing. Irritated and in tears, Hakan sooner or later exhibits the heartbreaking information that Layla is long gone. Shocked, Zeynep is left speechless. Subsequently she offers in and stalks the cope with Hakan arrives on the vicinity, keen to typhoon internal. However, Zeynep stops him. She exhibits that Fazl now has each the dagger and the talismanic blouse, making him even greater effective. Going in might be a mistake. However, Hakan, blinded by way of means of grief and rage, refuses to concentrate. They input the residence carefully. However, it's empty due to the fact Faisal is already long gone. Faisal had formerly employed an archaeologist for the recovery of Hagia Sophia. However, the guy, appearing on his very own, ventured into the basement without permission. As he stepped right into a hidden chamber, he turned into Eric via way of means of the site of historical artifacts earlier than he may want to technique what he had located. Phil regarded at the back of him and killed him. In the meantime, Hakan and Zay are seeking to discern out Phil's subsequent past. All at once it dawns on Hakan that Phil's last purpose is to convey Ru'aya returned, and his love for Hagia Sophia is simply as deep. This means Ru'aya should be buried in its basement. Zeynep then remembers that Faisal as soon as confirmed her a hidden room there, possibly wherein all of the immortals' graves are placed. Without losing time they determine to go to Hagia Sophia on the identical time Faisal is already inside the basement. He cautiously pours Hakan's blood right into a bowl and prepares to restore Ru'aya. Simply as he is set to present it to her, Hakan arrives and shoots the bowl, spilling the blood onto the floor. A fierce fight breaks out among them as they struggle. Hoan's blood, now seeping into the ground, starts to waft closer to the graves of the immortals. Understanding what is going on, Hoan broadcasts that he may not allow Faisal convey them returned. However, Faisal insists that he handiest desires to revive his spouse who turned into killed via way of means of Murad, Hakan's father. However, he refuses to concentrate, seizing the moment. Zion vindicators Hakan and collectively they restrain Phil. Hakan quick stabs him with the dagger. However, Phil still manages to receive arrested. There could be nobody left to prevent them. Left without a desire, he remains. Ezra then questions how Zion controlled to make this type of mess of factors. However, Hakan is simply as burdened. In the meantime, Zaynab regains focus inside the health facility. Hakan defends her, telling Ezra that she went past her obligation and isn't always at fault. Ezra makes a decision that Zion must make clear the whole thing herself and orders Kay and any other unswerving to carry her from the health facility, but Zaynab is already keep away from receiving exceptional a minor wound due to the fact the fight intensifies. Zaynab grabs the dagger and rushes in the direction of Ela. Without hesitation she presses Phil's blood onto Ela's lips. However, the spilled blood keeps seeping into the graves, and to their horror Ru'aya comes back to life. Overcome with emotion, Phil embraces her, but the ground beneath them begins evolved to tremble. The complete basement shakes violently due to the fact the rest of the immortals start awakening. In 1632 Istanbul, in which a relationship paperwork a few of the Protector and the Immortal parade. However, she ultimately betrays him, stabbing him with the dagger and asserting that a Protector and an Immortal can in no way be one. At that second, the Protector isn't always carrying the talismanic shirt while he tries to kill her with the dagger. It has no effect. Pei then exhibits that their relationship has weakened the powers of the Protector and all the relics. Without hesitation she kills him inside the present. Explosion at Hagia Sophia is referred to as a Fulan leak, and comparatively Ela is alive another time inside the period in between. Zaynab, due to her injuries, is hospitalized, but the medical doctors declare her out of danger. Pressured and overwhelmed, Ela asks Hoan how she came back to life. He explains everything, but she fears that she may not be just like in advance. Then Hakan reassures her, saying she is even greater adorable now and has now no longer something to worry about. Inside the period in between, Faisal and Ru'aya finally reunite, savoring a quiet second together over a pitcher of wine. A revel in a victory lingers inside the air, but Ru'aya's expression remains tense. Her unease fast surfaces as she voices her task. The danger isn't always over. However, the very last Protector remains alive, and as prolonged as he exists, their safety isn't confident. Faisal, however, remains composed. A subtle smile plays on his lips as he reassures her, his tone calm and confident. He tells her there isn't something to worry about. He has already set everything in motion. His plan is in region, and soon the chance may be eliminated as quickly as and for all. He then holds a press conference announcing that the Fulan explosion grew to be because of Hakan, whom he labels a terrorist and fugitive. This turns the overall public in competition to him. Fast health facility guards recognize Hakan and start chasing him inside the chaos. He knocks out guards, but in advance than he can escape. Each different Protect sneaks up behind him and actions his head with a baton, knocking him unconscious. At the same time as Hakan regains popularity, he well-known shows himself inside the basement of a pharmacy, surrounded with the useful resource of the usage of the reliable ones. They inform him that his life is in risk because of the reality the complete town is after him, but he insists that he needs to go to the health facility and lose Zaynab. No matter their warnings, he refuses to pay interest. In reality, then Ezra, the most senior reliable, arrives and locations an end to the argument. Hakan says they can't maintain him there in competition to his will. However, Ezra clarifies that he's free to go, but he ought to be aware that 7 immortals are absolutely roaming freely in Istanbul. If he